This is Steve Ridgel, and I want to say something this morning about, well, it's one of the most puzzling stories in the Bible, but I think there's some things we can learn from it and some warnings for us. It's from the book of Judges. It was one of the judges of God's people, Jephthah, and God's people were oppressed. Now, he had had a hard life. Boy, he was the son of a prostitute, and his half siblings didn't appreciate him, love him, drove him away. He lived with a bunch of ruffians. But when Israel got in real trouble, they asked him to help them. And he did. He defeated their enemies, led them. Amazingly, had a strong faith in God. I don't know if he got that from his dad or maybe even from his mom. I don't know where he got that, but he had some strong faith. And they went to battle, and he was so carried away, and he was so excited, and he was so fired up to lead God's people. Then he made God a promise. He said, help me devastate your enemies, and when we destroy all of the enemies, then when I come home to celebrate, the first thing out of my door, I'll sacrifice to you. Now, I'm sure he was thinking it would be a goat or, something like that, or he'd pull up in the yard and there'd be a cow wandering off the porch or some bird. I don't know what exactly was thinking, but he was excited. And God delivered. God did exactly what Jephthah asked. He gave him a staggering victory. He comes home to celebrate, and when he's coming toward the house, I guess his daughter hears it, and she's had heard of the victory maybe, and she was all prepared to celebrate. And his only child, his daughter, runs out first, ahead of all his servants, ahead of everything, dancing and singing, and it crushes him because he remembered what he promised God. So what do you do now? Well, I fear that some of us would answer that this way. Well, I said that, but God knows I didn't really mean that. I made a pledge to God, but God understands it's not that. Or God would understand. I'm going to kind of change the rules here. I made a promise and said I'd do it, but I'm not. But God will understand. God will get it. God won't hold that against me. Or God would really not expect me to sacrifice my daughter. All of those things. We like to make excuses and explain what God will or won't do or think. Yeah, well, God understands because I really love. God understands because they are so. God understands because it's this or God understands because God will make an exception for her. I get what God really meant. God's so far above us, we can't do that. But what did Jephthah do when it was all said and done? Oh, his daughter told him. He said, "You've crushed me because I made a vow to God," and she said, "You got to keep that." What a daughter of faith. Now, she still was, depending on the version read, she was still a virgin, which most people take to mean she wasn't married. She had not even had a chance to have a husband, have kids, all the things that apparently she dreamed of. And she said, so here's the only thing I asked. Dad, you got to do what you promised God. But can I have 2 months with my friends to mourn over the fact that I'm not ever even going to get to be married? And I love those friends that went with her, supported her, and off they went into the hills and for 2 months they mourned that she was going to die unmarried and never get to experience the life that she had wanted. I love those friends because they were probably all going to experience that, but they went with her. Jephthah, as horrible as it was, kept his vow to God. Well, he didn't love his daughter, he loved God more. So a couple of lessons I take out of all this. One is don't assume you know God because he is so far above us. He's a little bit unknowable to us. And number 2, be really careful when you promise things to God. God does not take your promises lightly, and you shouldn't either. Well, this is Steve Ridgel being puzzled, but a little bit humbled to think, boy, what a God that I can't even understand. And really, if you want to talk about gods, I want one that a guy like me can't really ever understand.